Hey everybody, welcome back to the Race 5 Smokehouse and Grill, and today we are firing up the Gosney pizza oven and we are making these delicious, airy, cheesy, absolutely out of this world pepperoni rolls. Let's go! So I got turned on to pepperoni rolls, I don't know, 12, 13 years ago. My good friend Joe turned me on to this place called Capri in Dearborn, Michigan, where they make these amazing pepperoni rolls. And I've been hooked since. Doing some research on pepperoni rolls, I found out that this was huge down in West Virginia. All the coal miners, they'd get them packed up for lunch so they wouldn't have to stay hot or cold, and they could eat them at any time. And you'd have a really great meal that you didn't have to overpack for. It kept your belly full and allowed them to keep working. We're gonna try to make a version of it right now. And this is kind of my own version. I've been using a recipe for New Orleans po' boy bread for a lot of different things. It's the King Arthur's Flour Company's recipe, but I've been using it for so many things. So I figured this is a nice, light and airy piece of bread. This would be perfect for a pepperoni roll. I've done it a couple of times in the oven. Now it's time to graduate to the Gosney. Let me show you how we put this all together. We're going to start out with the water. We're going to put some water right here into the mixer. This is 454 grams of lukewarm water. Now lukewarm, we're talking it's about 100 degrees, 105 degrees. We have 25 grams of sugar, but we're only going to put about half of that in here. This is going to help the yeast start to bloom. We're going to add our yeast in. That's how it looks right now. So we're gonna give this a quick mix with a fork here, just to kind of get this all integrated. Now right now it looks kind of flat, but what we're looking for is this to get nice and frothy. And once you start getting a smell of the yeast starting to bloom and open up, you'll know it's working. But we're gonna let this sit for about 15 minutes, make sure that yeast is alive and ready for action. So I'll show you what this looks like so we know that it's time to keep going with this recipe. The yeast, water, and sugar have been sitting about 10, 12 minutes now, but you can see in here how frothy and bubbly this looks. So I know that this yeast is active and alive and ready to go to work. So let's put the rest of this together. We're gonna start by adding the remainder of our sugar, 25 grams of olive oil, 5 cups of flour. This recipe from King Arthur's calls for unbleached bread flour. I'm actually using their higher gluten Sir Lancelot flour. I've been using this so much and it is fantastic. Highly recommend it. Let's get this in there. And then we're gonna add our salt, which is 18 grams. And we're just gonna start mixing this together by hand, just to kind of get this all integrated and into a little bit of a shaggy dough. It's nice and shaggy. We're gonna go ahead, get the spiral hook on. Then we're gonna mix this on medium speed for about 7 to 10 minutes until it turns into a dough ball that is completely formed and off the bottom. Okay, this has been going for about 8 minutes. You can tell by looking inside of here how this is pulling nicely off the bottom and it's one kind of homogeneous ball of dough. We needed to add about 3 tablespoons of flour throughout the mixing process. You can see here how it's stuck to the bottom of the bowl and kind of pulling and stretching. You want all that to come together as one. You add a tablespoon at a time until it starts pulling off the bottom of the bowl and looking perfect like this. Next, we have to let this rest. So I'm gonna open this up, take off the hook. Looking perfect. Take this off, get this with a little bit of cling wrap, saran wrap, whatever you have. You wanna cover this up. Try to keep it as tight as possible in a warm area where there's not a lot of breeze or draft. It's a nice day out today. It's about 75 degrees, no wind in here. Gonna leave this here, cover it with a towel, and then we're gonna come back in an hour. Gonna let this double to triple in size while we wait. We'll show you what we're gonna do next after this rises. Dough has been sitting and rising for about 1 hour. Let's take a quick look at it. And you can see right away, this has doubled and maybe even more in size in that hour. So this is perfect. Let's open this up. So this is looking great, nice and soft to the touch. What I wanna do now is I'm gonna get this out here and I wanna weigh it. This is enough for 8 pepperoni rolls, but you wanna divide it as close as possible, so you're gonna need to know the total weight. So let's get this out of here. I'm gonna flour up my hands a little bit and flour up the cutting board a little bit. This is gonna help get this out of here without making too much of a mess. Just gonna give this a quick work real quick. Let's give it a quick weight and see where we're at here. We're at 1,254 grams. So 1,254 divided by 8 is about 156.75 grams per roll. So let's separate these out to 156, 157 gram balls. Just gonna start ripping, seeing where we're at. 171. There's 157. Then I just like to give them a quick work, roll over, get this nice and smooth. Give it a little roll on the table here. Give it the roll. You'll get a feel for this. You'll feel it rolling nice and tight in your hand. Then you're gonna get this nice round ball off onto a baking sheet. And we're gonna do that for all 8 of these, 157 or so grams. And we're gonna do all 8 of these. We'll be back when these are done and tell you what we're going to do next. We have our dough balls all put together. We got 8 of them. They're between 156 to 160 grams each. I'm gonna give these just a little drizzle of olive oil on top because we're gonna throw some saran wrap on here because it's going for another rest. We don't want these to dry out while they're resting. These are oiled up. These are gonna be safe under here. We're gonna let this go for about 15 minutes to a half hour before we come out and shape our pepperoni rolls. So we'll be back in about 15, 30 minutes. I'm also gonna throw a rag on top of it. These have been resting about 15 minutes. Time to get our next step going. Get yourself a cookie sheet here lined with parchment paper, because we are about to start building these and these are gonna rest on the parchment paper. So let's move this off to the side here. These are looking great, relaxing nicely. So I'm going to start rolling these out and building our pepperoni rolls. Now I recommend going to your deli and getting that pepperoni freshly sliced, not the stuff you buy pre-packaged, pre-sliced. You wanna get the good stuff. I got this stuff from our local Italian market, Ambrosino's. They've got the best Italian stuff in our area. So you wanna get this nice sliced pepperoni. Nice, big, and thinly cut. Let's get this off to the side here. So take a dough ball, cover that up. You don't want these to dry out while you're working. And we're just gonna spread this out. And we're gonna go pretty thin with this because we're gonna roll it up nice and tight here in a little bit. Kind of like you're rolling out a pizza, but you wanna keep it kind of square and uniform. And I really don't put much on the cutting board with this. Maybe you could use a little flour, but I kind of like it to be a touch sticky so it doesn't pull back on you when you're working on it. But you wanna make sure you give yourself enough room to get your pepperoni and cheese in there. So this is looking nice and square, nice and uniform, just like we like it. Now let's load it up with that pepperoni. And you wanna make sure you give yourself rooms around the edges. That way when you roll it up, you have you have more room to pinch it off and make sure everything's sealed, because you don't want it blowing out or leaking out of the side when it's cooking. So these are about enough for roughly 9 pieces of pepperoni. Then take a little handful of cheese. You don't want to get too much in here. Again, you don't want it leaking out of the side, but you want enough in there to taste it. And we're going to want to keep an edge around all the sides. So when we roll this up and tuck it in, we're able to do that nice and pretty looking without stuff falling all over. Let me show you how. So you start with this end, you just roll it over, and that's it. And just keep rolling over. When you get to the bottom, kind of want to tuck it in, give it that last final roll, and pull over. And we're gonna pinch all this shut as much as possible. You wanna make sure it's closed again so we're not leaking out of the side while we're cooking, and it keeps everything contained. So there is one pepperoni roll all put together. Now we're gonna put it right here on our parchment lined tray and let it rest for another hour before we get it into the oven. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the rest of these, and we'll be back when it's time to throw them in the oven, which will be in 1 more hour of rest. This is also the perfect time to go over to your pizza oven, fire it up, let it heat up for about an hour or so while this is resting. We're gonna cook this about 375 to 400 degrees. If you're doing this at your kitchen oven, you wanna put a rack towards the top and a rack towards the middle. That way in the middle of the process, you could switch the 2 racks, get even cooking. We're gonna do 1 tray at a time in the Gosney. That's all it can fit. So we're gonna do 4 with cheese up front. We'll be back after an hour after these are rested. These have been resting about 1 hour. As I was making the rest of these, I did not have enough pepperoni to fill all 8. So I was only able to make 6 right now. So I have 3 with pepperoni and cheese on here. I have 3 more rising still. Let's take this plastic off. These have puffed up and proofed up nicely. These are ready to get cooked. We have the oven going. The stone was just reading at about 400 degrees, which is perfect. We're gonna throw this into the oven. I did add a rack because I am worried about the bottom of these burning on that stone. So this is just gonna raise it up a little bit. So let's go get these into the pizza oven. So currently we have the flame still going. I am gonna shut that off right now. Add this in right onto the rack. I have the door here. And we have it cooking now. That's gonna go for about 10-15 minutes, and then I'm gonna check, maybe give it a rotate, make sure that we have some nice even cooking on there. We'll be back in about 10-15 minutes. These have been baking for about 15 minutes. I did keep the door closed, fully closed, and the lid on top of the chimney. I've been trying to keep as much heat in there as possible. So now it's been 15 minutes. Let's pull these out, take a quick look, make sure they're cooking evenly. Do recommend getting a heat-safe glove. Oh, and these are looking gorgeous. Did have a little cheese blowout down here. I'm not sure if we could see it. Crisping up nice. I am gonna just give this a quick spin. Get that back in there. Take a quick stone temp over here. Yeah, we're still rocking into 370s, 360s, which is perfect to finish these off. That's closed back up. We're gonna go about 10 more minutes and then pull them off, let them rest, and dive into them. You see that we did have a blowout on one of them. I must not have sealed that bun enough. It's okay, it's still gonna taste great. They're looking great. Got a nice little crust on them. Can't wait to try these. Be back when we pull them out. These are done, and I can't tell you how great it smells out here right now from this baking bread, that pepperoni and cheese. They just pulled out. It was about 15 minutes. We took them out, flipped them, went about another 10 minutes. It's got a perfect color. These are rocket hot and you don't want to burn your face off, but look at these. These just look absolutely gorgeous. Perfect browning on the bottom, nice and soft. You can see here, we did have a blowout here. Hot. Tell me who does not love this? I know Joe doesn't. So we're gonna let these cool down a little bit on a rack, and then we're gonna come back and dive into them. I can't wait. Absolutely gorgeous. This has been resting a few minutes. I can't wait any longer. I'm probably going to burn my face off. I don't care, it's time to do this. I do have some homemade marinara I warmed up, perfect to dip this into. If you'd like to know my recipe for the homemade marinara, please leave a comment and I'll be sure to do a video if you guys want it. I'm gonna cut this open and see how we did. Oh yeah, that looks perfect. Light and airy. Nice pepperoni and cheese ring in there, super fluffy. That's one of the key components is you want some nice airiness in here. You want it to be light, not a super dense bite. And with this bread recipe, you get that. It's a nice, airy piece of bread. Out of this world, that's a home run. Pepperoni, cheesy, it's like a pizza and a sandwich. So good. What I like about doing it in the pizza oven is it actually crisps up a little bit more than it does in the oven. So that gives a little bit nicer of a texture as you're eating this. Quality ingredients, King Arthur Sir Lancelot dough, I used the Grande shredded mozzarella, one of the best cheeses out there. Pepperoni sliced from our Italian deli, Ambrosino's. Homemade marinara sauce, all cooked in the Gosney. Can't beat it. If you like what we did here, please hit that thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, check me out on social media, and we will be talking to you all soon. Take care, everybody. I appreciate you all. Peace.